NBC's Vaughn Hilliard and Kelly Cobiella are both reporting from Paris. Also with us, Michael Crowley, the New York Times diplomatic correspondent. So, Vaughn, first can you tell us about Trump's visit? His long and sometimes rocky relationship with Macron, primarily over NATO and Ukraine.
Right. Much like the comeback cathedral here behind us, this is a comeback president, and this is a comeback relationship for Emmanuel Macron and Donald Trump. If you go back to at the time that this cathedral burned in 2019, it was about the same time that Donald Trump was threatening to impose tariffs on French wines imported to the United States in retaliation for what he said was unfair digital sales tax that French President Emmanuel Macron was putting on. And so this for Donald Trump is going to be his first international trip since winning last November's election. And for him, is it a testament about the longstanding relationship that these two men have at a perilous time, let's be very frank, for the French president? His government collapsing just this week, the prime minister resigning just over 24 hours ago, and at a point in time in which he has expressed openly concerns about an additional trade war and about even further tariffs that Donald Trump has threatened to impose on all EU goods imported into the United States, but also serious question marks about the United States' commitment under the Trump administration to continuing to provide funding and aid to Ukraine in its defense against Russia's aggression at a time that the NATO alliance is questioning the extent to which Donald Trump will remain committed to the cause that France has been on the front lines of maintaining a strong relationship with President Zelensky. So there's a lot of questions tomorrow. We should note President Biden was invited to attend. He declined. Jill Biden, the First Lady, will be here in attendance, but Donald Trump will be alongside the likes of the President of Italy, the Kings of Jordan and Morocco. Prince William will be here as well. And we are told that additional dignitaries and other foreign leaders are expected to attend this ceremony. Donald Trump will be flying in from New York tomorrow for the ceremony that will be here tomorrow evening before making his way inside of the actual cathedral upon its openings with the bells welcoming folks back into the cathedral for the first time in 5 years, Andrea.
And Kelly, in 2019, Macron vowed he would reopen Notre Dame by the end of this year. He did it. It's really a remarkable accomplishment. You've been covering it. This could be a victory lap, but certainly doesn't seem that way with his government collapsing. His own term doesn't end until 2027, but his power is completely gridlocked with what's going on in the National Assembly.
Yeah, he should be able to celebrate this moment. He'll try to put a good face on it with all of the ceremonies, the pomp and religious pageantry tomorrow. But the bottom line is it's been a very difficult week for President Macron here in France. His parliament is deadlocked. They can't pass a budget. In fact, the reason the prime minister was brought down was because he was trying to force through a spending plan for the government using constitutional powers and not taking it to the vote because he simply couldn't get enough votes behind him. President Macron took a gamble earlier this year by calling early parliamentary elections, and he lost that gamble. That he now has a deadlocked parliament and is struggling to get anything done. And really, the people, as well as some parties, turning against him. Now, tomorrow there's meant to be a very grand ceremony starting at 7 o'clock. A big film will be played celebrating the people who made this incredible feat happen, helped to rebuild Notre Dame. President Macron will make a speech. He will be presiding over these celebrations along with the Archbishop of Paris, who will then grandly knock 3 times on the doors of Notre Dame with the choir of Notre Dame singing back at him before the doors fling open, the guests enter, and the world once again gets to see what an incredible feat has been accomplished here. But no doubt, while people here in France are very proud of what has happened here at Notre Dame, for the most part, many are not at all happy with President Macron or with the government.
Yeah, it's just so extraordinary that this has been accomplished. But, Michael, during Trump's first term, Macron, as the Associated Press put it, proved to be among the world leaders most adept at managing the American president's whims, trying to develop a personal relationship. We see the pictures there. That was a Bastille Day ceremony. And you'll remember that President Trump, in his first White House term, was so impressed with the parade, the military parade, that he came back and wanted an inaugural parade like that on Pennsylvania Avenue and was told that he couldn't have tanks because they would collapse the asphalt.
That's right, Andrea. An unforgettable moment from Trump's first term. Look, I think that Macron learned early something that a lot of world leaders are going to be practicing, which is the old adage that flattery will get you everywhere. You know, Macron is one of many world leaders who have deep disagreements with President Trump. You know, I have little doubt that privately he would have liked to see Kamala Harris win the election. I mean, I haven't been told that directly, but I think, you know, it's pretty safe to infer it. But like a lot of European leaders who don't welcome Trump's return, I think they feel like they have no choice but to flatter him, embrace him, treat him essentially like royalty, because Trump responds to that. He's very ego-driven, and we're starting to see this happen around the world. I'm thinking of the South Korean president who has been in the news because of that sort of inept declaration of martial law. But before that little fiasco, the presidential office in Seoul let it be known that the South Korean president was working on his golf game, dusting off his golf clubs. He hadn't played in years, but he was getting ready to go hit the links with Trump. So all around the world, these leaders are getting ready to stroke Trump's ego. And for Macron, you know, he's very smart about this. This is a great stagecraft, Trump-style stagecraft. Notre Dame, of course, is a giant, iconic landmark known around the world. It's large in scale. The fire was a huge deal. The reopening will be a huge deal. It's the kind of event and setting that Trump is absolutely going to love. So I think it's a smart move by Macron, even if he's going to be kind of biting his tongue about his true feelings.
And Michael, I just want to also ask you about opposition mounting to Tulsi Gabbard taking over the intelligence community. You've got this extraordinary letter from so many former generals, diplomats, high-ranking generals and admirals, as well as ambassadors from all over the world, arguing that she's inexperienced, but in particular concerned about her secret visits to Bashar al-Assad, the dictator in Syria, who's right now, of course, beleaguered, as well as her public pronouncements echoing Vladimir Putin's propaganda, frankly, about Ukraine.
Absolutely, Andrew. I mean, she is, if she were confirmed, she would be the head of the entire intelligence community. That job is not as famous as the CIA director, but the CIA director actually reports to the director of national intelligence. She would be sitting atop the pyramid of all of America's intelligence agencies. And, I think the biggest concern probably involves Russia and her access to American intelligence, a lot of which, one of our highest intelligence targets right now, intelligence competitions, has to do with the competition for influence with Moscow. And I think that's a source of enormous concern. But the fact that Syria is back in the headlines, I think, lends a new urgency to this. And frankly, Andrea, I think is bad for her nomination, because it really reminds people and makes vivid again the fact that she was, essentially taking the side of Bashar Assad in this civil war. Now, let's be clear, and I'll wrap up. It's a very complicated situation, and the rebel forces have some real bad guys among them, so it's not black and white. But to go and meet with Assad, and particularly to endorse his claim that the rebel forces had essentially used chemical weapons on themselves and that Assad had not used them, despite the findings of the United Nations, United States, a lot of other independent sources, that's just very hard for people to figure out. And so, again, I think the fact that Syria is back in the headlines is going to make this even more of an uphill fight for her.